Hello, my name is Katrina Watts of Eastern Michigan University, and today I will be demonstrating one technique of many of drawing humans with soft pastels. Let's start off with the supplies you'll need. First, you need, of course, your chalk, or also called soft pastels. Second, you will need colored paper. Avoid white paper if possible, which I will explain why later on in the lesson. You will also need something to wipe off both your dirty pastels as well as your fingers. I use a paper towel because it's cheap, easy to get, and it does its job well. Then you need tape to hold your paper down so it doesn't move as you're drawing and coloring. Next, you'll need an eraser and a graphite pencil so you can have a base drawing down if you so wish. In my case, my drawing is from a reference photo that I acquired from one of many free photo sites online that are royalty free. Next, we're going to need to choose our low tones, mid tones, and high tones. Usually for a human skin, having one of each primary color is most successful, so I'll be using a blue navy as my low tone, a burnt umber as my mid tone, and a nice tan as my high tone. Let's start off with our nice navy, going in with our shadows in all the darkest places. Please note that we're going to use our chalk pastels very lightly because we don't want everything to get very messy and murky. Otherwise all these nice colors we're going to use will just all go to waste. Next, we're going to go in very gently with the tan going on top. Again, lightly, but it's not too hard with the tan because it's one of our highlights, and it's actually our lightest light. Finally, we'll go in with our midtones, going in all over the place where the lights and the darks aren't. This will help unify the two colors together. One thing that can also make it nice and soft in case it gets too chalky is using some kind of blending tool. In my case, I will use fingers. However, it's also possible to use something such as a blending stub, your paper towel, or anything else you want. Don't be afraid to go back in with all the other colors to make sure everything blends well with one another. The next pastels we use very sparingly. A bit of black for the darkest darks, and then white for our lightest lights. We'll start off with black for our very darkest of darks. Again, use this as sparingly as possible. The problem with black is that, unlike with dark colors, this value will make things very muddy and very gross. So just use it for very bare minimum. Next, we'll use white for our very lightest of lights. This is also why we don't want to use light paper. The problem with chalk pastels is, while they're very beautiful, you can quickly lose your highlights. While the yellow in the background for the paper that I'm using will also make a very nice hue beneath it. This way I can use white as I please to make sure the highlights stay just that, highlighted. The third set of colors are meant for a special purpose. The reddest part of the human face, in this case we will be using a mid-pink, and then for the turning of any flesh we will use a rich green. We'll start off with that nice green for our turning of the flesh. By turning of the flesh, I of course mean when the skin naturally curves over something such as bone or cartilage, such as with the jaw or the eyebrows, or when it just curves on the outside and insides of the ear. The reason why I use green is because it helps accentuate the natural curve of that shadow without being completely overbearing of our darkest dark, which in this case is the navy. Next, we go in with the pink for our nice rosy skin. However, we don't use red because it's much too overbearing and would quickly take away from the rest of the image. We'll go back in later on and add it as we please. Now that we have our underlying colors down on our paper, we can start using more natural colors. To match my model's skin tone as best as I can, I will be using a pale peach the most. As for the shadows, I will be using an assortment of browns atop the colors already there, which will make the browns all that much more rich. I will also be using red for places such as the lips and cheeks, however very sparingly, as red is a very powerful color. Along with trying to get that natural, realistic effect of the skin that we're going for with this assignment, the nice thing about these colors that we're using is that they also act as a blender on top of the colors we've already laid out. The peach will help keep the mid-tones and high tones mixing in together so to get that nice transition, while those browns make the nice rich shadow that we're going to go looking for. It helps to bring all these colors together and makes everything just all around rich, colorful, and makes it just a very interesting image overall. With the skin coming together nicely, we can now not only go back to all the old colors we used before, but add in new colors to help everything blend together. I use some purples to make the shadows that much more interesting, as well as orange and yellow lightly to add accents throughout the image. At this point is where you can use all those colors that you really want to, and just basically have free reign for where you want to alter, where you want to smooth, where you want it nice and jagged. It's where you're really pulling all these colors together to make that final image. In my case, I will be using a lot of purple for the shadows, make it interesting. I'll bring out also a little yellow to bring that natural hue we have from the paper beneath it. This is also the part where we start stepping back. When you step back, you'll know where to blend, such as where I am doing with my fingers, and where to accentuate and bring out your contours. Now is also when you're going to want to start using that towel, because while I'm blending with my fingers, you also have two problems. One, fingers tend to be very oily, and two, you'll have a lot of different colors on your fingers, and you run the risk of blending everything together where you don't want it to. Did I mention you need to step back? Step back, step back. Stepping back just helps overall with your image, and it helps you breathe for a moment. Now, see, we have all our colors coming together, the skin is very nicely done, and we can start moving. Start off, we're going to lay down the foundations for that eye. We start off with the blue navy, the midtones for the gray, and then we'll go in the white for the white of the eye. Our main focus, however, is going to be on that hair. The lightest light is going to be, of course, yellow, since she's going to be a blonde. The midtones will be a mixture of burnt sienna as well as orange, and the low tones will be a mixture of blue, navy, as well as brown. The reason why we reuse these colors is to help unify the hair to the skin to make sure they stay one entity while still remaining two different elements of the picture plane. Instead of going in with just the black, white, green, and pink like we did with the skin, we're going to throw all the other colors in as well to keep everything nice and rich. The reason why we do this is because there's that much more curving, more shading, and much more texture within the hair. Now, as we keep going on, we're going to go back and forth with using all sorts of different colors to help accentuate the hair. Now, unlike the skin, we'll be using a lot of lines to accentuate the flow and rhythm of the hair, because we'll have individual hairs as opposed to the smoothness of the skin we have going on. I like to go in with my darkest darks, get those in, smooth them out, and I'll actually use a little bit of green to help make that yellow really pop. Again, we'll be using past color, so I use a little bit of burnt umber to make the shadows that much warmer, help really clash with the green, and we'll just use a touch of black to help accentuate those darkest darks we have going on. Now, you might note that the yellow is popping out a little too much, so I'll actually be using its complement, purple, to help dim it down just a touch enough so that it keeps that yellow without just being completely lemon yellow. Now we'll go in, get that hatching done, accentuate it around that barrette, then throw in those final details we have going on. Make that thing really nice, smooth, while keeping the contours of the hairs still intact. And there you have it, one of many ways to work with chalk pastels on an academic as well as personal enjoyment basis. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope that you were able to learn something with me.